Once they figured out how atoms worked, chemistry was invented. The first guy who started to figure out the periodic table of the elements was a Russian guy named Mendeleev. All atoms have the same basic structure, protons and neutrons in the middle, and then a bunch of electrons around the outside. Three very basic atoms, carbon, oxygen, and hydrogen, can create a whole bunch of different chemical combinations in a whole bunch of different ways to create a whole bunch of the stuff that makes life. One of the most important chemicals is DNA, or deoxyribonucleic acid. The way DNA works is very, very impressive. It's like this huge ladder that's all twisted up. And then whenever our body needs some spare parts, a small portion of the ladder untwists, and then the ladder rungs kind of decouple from one another. And then a copy of the untwisted, decoupled rungs are used to build a whole bunch of proteins. And then all those proteins are put together, and that creates the body part that we need. I watched this really cool movie the other night about Russian spies and the CIA, modern Russian spies. The whole movie was based on all kinds of deception and cons within cons. Central to the whole story was a mythical Russian Sparrow program, where they would train these very gorgeous Russian women in the advanced arts of seduction. And then they would use their advanced psychological seduction tactics to find out the missing parts of what their target wanted. And then they would take that subconscious unmet need and exploit it and leverage it so they could control their target. There's a very powerful type of covert hypnosis that will allow you to create a hallucination in the mind of your target. It involves understanding the relationship between our surface structure conversational topical elements and our deep structure unmet subconscious needs. Through subconscious and covert calibration, you can speak in a very specific surface structure language that will elicit a very strong subconscious desire, a very irresistible urge. And irresistible urges can generate leading decisions. Leading decisions are powerful ways to create organized thoughts. And when you organize your thoughts, it will create a lot of extra efficiency in your brain. Most people have their thoughts haphazardly organized and tossed around without much consideration. And when you organize your thoughts in your mind without very much consideration, it's very hard to find them when you need them. A very troubling situation to find yourself in is to be in desperate need of a thought or an idea, but not being able to remember where you put it. So you end up reaching down into the depths of your mind, and you end up grabbing whatever thought you can get your hands around, which may or may not match this conversation is getting very, very confusing. And confusing conversations just for fun is not always a good idea, because some conversations don't like to be confused. Some conversations might take it personally if you try and confuse them, as if you're trying to set them up to be embarrassed in front of their friends, like you're playing some kind of trick on them. Playing tricks need your full attention, because if you let your tricks out to play and you shift your focus just once, they might run away and never come back. And then you'll be all out of tricks. This is why this hypnotic technique works so well, because after your target does whatever you wanted them to, because of the surface structure leveraging, they'll create a post-situational amnesia. And they'll remember this however you want to remember this. Or if it's easier for you, you can forget that this ever happened. The longer the story wore on, the bigger the scope of the cons became. Russians conning Russians, CIA agents conning CIA agents. The end was something that I could not have seen coming. A fantastically written story. They only understand about 10% of our DNA. The rest is unknown. Some DNA is activated only in certain environments. And since our mind doesn't really know the difference between reality and a well-crafted hallucination, this means that you can activate your DNA with a strong enough imagination. And you can create a perfect hallucination to control your DNA to build whatever body parts you want. A brain capable of wonderful skills, telepathy, levitation, time travel. Once upon a time, they could only postulate atoms, and then they found out about protons and neutrons and electrons. But then they found out about quarks and other subatomic particles. Many particle physicists believe that they'll just keep finding smaller and smaller particles. It's just a matter of remembering where we put them back before we decided to think about this stuff or forget this stuff, whichever is easiest for you.